Hello and welcome to Turning Point Tactics, a competitive Kill Team 40k podcast and YouTube channel focused giving you the strategies and tactics to siege initiative every turning point. I'm your host Ryan. I'm once again joined by a very special guest, Bart. How you doing this evening, Bart?
Yeah, not too bad. How are you, Ryan?
Yeah, I'm doing good. I'm doing good. We are working our way through the world of technical difficulties to hopefully bring you a tier list tonight. We'll see how it goes because we have had various audio issues. We have had OBS die on different computers and all sorts. So we'll see how it goes. But we're going to try and power through and in order of the sort of the factions, give you guys what we think the meta is and try and do it as quick as feasibly possible. So we'll see how it goes. So, without any further ado, then Bart, should we get straight into it and go with the first team, Novitiates, and let me know where you think they sit between S and D tier.
I'd say Novitiate as of now. I would put them in like mid to top B. I don't think they're strong enough to be in A tier or S tier. Definitely not S tier. It's fine for me to say that they're only B because it seems that from most recent matches that I played, this is one of the teams I'm losing most against. But yeah, I think they're like about mid B.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I think, like for instance, we talk about the team format and that sort of stuff. If you can choose to always play them on ITD, they're probably an S tier. But if you can't force that matchup, you're going to get caught out on some unfavourable open boards. So I think top of B tier is probably. I'm in agreement that they're reliable, that they're good, that they're very very killy. They're quite fragile, apart from blinding aura. They're incredibly good on ITD, but on open board, mm, they're not the best, but they're not the worst, they're not the best. So I think that sits pretty
Okay,
well there. So if we go into the next team, which is Vet Guard,
Vedguard.
yeah,
Um.
recently nerfed. I say recently nerfed.
Yeah,
It's been a while now.
obviously, yeah, quite recently nerfed, but I think they're still decent, solid. I think they should sit somewhere within B as well. Not sure if they're better than the Vitiates these days or not, but I still quite like them. They still have uh, quite a few decent tricks, but I mean tricks. By now, everyone knows what they do,
Yeah.
but I think they're still solid.
Yeah, so I think they sit below novitiates, and the reason for that is I think novitiates themselves just have so much more double kill potential when it comes to like killing these guys. So if you're not playing loot and you're on open board loot, then Vet Guard probably have the advantage. But I think ITD and most of the other missions, I just think the Vitiates just pip it now, to be honest. So I think they're still middle of the road. I would say that they're still B tier. They're still 14 bodies. They can still play the mission really well, particularly I said on loot and that sort of thing. But there's a few teams now that give them pause, which I think is a good thing. And I think now they're probably sitting below novitiates in my opinion at least, but still comfortably in the middle of the road. Any
Yeah,
disagreements?
you can't underestimate like 14 bodies, 12 activations, so many AP weapons, and team-wide dash like in your first go like during TP1. So they're still decent, but they're definitely much worse than they used to be.
Yeah, completely agree. Um, so if we roll into the next team, we've got breaches as the next team, which is
I see
another.
we're trying really hard not to get into another 5 hour long episode, but yeah.
Well, this is it. It's like I think with a lot of these teams, if we've already covered them, you can go into that episode and not too much has changed. So if you really want a 3 hour long slogfest, then we'll do that. But I reckon we can, for a lot of these, the ones that haven't changed too much, we can probably breeze through quite quickly. But there are some that I do want to touch on a bit more, like scouts and hunter clade and that sort of stuff. We'll probably talk a bit more extended on. But for breaches, where are you thinking breaches are now?
Oh, I love Breachers. I think they're a very powerful team, and by that I mean I don't rate them at all. I think they're extremely slow, extremely predictable, and extremely boring. and they only have one trick up their sleeve. And I'd say they're worse than either of the teams that we have already in the tier list. But yeah, what do you think?
Yeah, that's really interesting. So I don't know if I'd put them worse than Vetguard, um, but it is going to be close. I do think that they're worse than the Vitiates, though. I think the Vitiates have so
All
much more
right.
movement potential. So I will chuck them in between the two. And the reason I say that is that they have some real play when it comes to like lock it down. They have access to GA2. They have some double kill potential. They're pretty good in ITD. But I agree with you. They're not the fastest of team. But then neither are Vetguard after turning point one really. So it sort of depends on the map and the layout, I guess, for that team. But they have more double kill potential than the vet card do, unless of course they get off a crazy mine, but that's very much not guaranteed, I'd suggest.
Yeah, I guess, but then like 54 or whatever it is inch movement with Vedgar cannot be understated. The value of that is, and I guess yeah we can keep breaches in B between Novitiates and Vedgar for now. We'll see if we change our mind later on.
Yeah, we'll see where other things fall
Yeah,
out.
and in a way they're very nice upgrades to Inquisitor agents.
Yeah,
So
they certainly are. They certainly are. They're the best way of playing Inquisition agents, probably, and still are, to be fair. Okay, so if we're rolling into the next not Inquisition, but the next Imperial team, next up we've got Illicidian Starstriders. So this is a team that I've played quite a lot. I think the meta has, I would say, moved rather unfavourably around them. I mean, the fact that Commandos got nerfed is great, but I still think teams like Felgor Ravagers are a massive problem for them. And I think there's now more teams out there that are just going to become more and more of an issue for this team to deal with. I'm looking at Scouts, I'm looking at your sort of, Nemesis Claw potential, and even Mandrakes, I think, can probably do quite a lot of damage to this team. So I think they're B tier, and I don't know where they go between. I think maybe they're better than the Vitiates, but not by a lot, and it's probably down to if you're playing on ITD or not. What's your thoughts on Star Striders in that sort of sense?
Well, when it comes to Star Striders themselves, I will have to rely on your perspective here because you're definitely way more experienced with them than I am. When it comes to where to put them, uh, I'd say yeah, somewhere around the novitiates is probably okay. I'm definitely biased because I used to play nuns with guns a lot,
Yeah.
and I always thought that novitiates are the better team of the two. But if you prefer to put them above novitiates, that's fine by me. The only observation I'd like to make now is that B very quickly has become the imperial tier.
It is looking that way, isn't it? It's looking like Imperium probably isn't going to be the strongest of factions as we go through. I mean, we got a few more Imperium teams to come, so we'll see where the others fall out. But yeah, they're not looking like they're not rocking anyone's world. I don't think the Imperium at the moment, but maybe the next team will
So
do.
I guess
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. So I guess when it comes to the distinction between novitiates and Elicidian Star Striders, this will very much depend on whether we're talking about open or ITD. Because if you're talking about ITD, then novitiates are definitely better. If you're talking about open, then I'd say maybe Star Striders.
Yeah, I think that's probably my take as well. Um, I think there's probably more maps that Star Striders are favourable on than the Vitiates, and with the access to silent weapons through the orbital asset, you can be mean to some of those novitiate players if they try and guard in the open too much. But I agree with you. Generically, um, I think novitiates have the advantage on ITD, and Star Striders have the advantage on
Ryan,
open.
clearly you have never lost a Marine to a condemned stake thrower.
Yeah.
But yeah, let's go with that. Shall we move on to the next one?
Yeah, so the next team is a team that I've been playing a little bit recently. Sort of thanks to, I would suggest, your advice actually, which is Hunterclade. So, interestingly, when we last came on and talked tier lists, we're both quite warm towards Hunterclade. Couldn't really explain it, but they hadn't been performing too well. Um, and then obviously I went to the Sheffield GT and took them. Um, and I think they're in a great place currently based on the meta that's around them, if that makes sense. I think they have the tools to have a somewhat even fight into most opponents. Um, so I think Hunterclade sit in A tier. They're probably not at the top of A tier, but I think they're going to be somewhere in there. What's your
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Like I think they're strong, they're consistent, and consistency is key in this game if you want to get results, especially in longer tournaments. I think they gain a lot from recent meta changes, not specifically any buffs to them, apart from obviously the improved doctrines, but also the changes to the meta in general. And yeah, when we spoke about potential teams that we might want to play, I mentioned Ryan would maybe you would like to try Hunterclade, also because like this is funny enough, this is the team I have had the worst tournament results with, so it's definitely not one for me. I simply can't play without a grenade and without any tricks. A fair kill team is not for me. I need something with unfair combinations and combos to succeed. Hence my love for novitiates. But yeah, like you clearly have proven that Hunter Clay have a place in current metagame on the top table. So yeah, I'd say somewhere in A. Next one.
Yeah, well, I'll just really just do a few fill-ins. One of the things that I think Hunterclade are really good for is their massive double kill potential. So if you're running assassins, you can run 5 guys that can all double kill during a turning point, which is pretty huge. And their 40 mil bases are amazing for that because it makes it so hard for your opponent to realistically like spread out, and they have to really start trying to charge block and base block you to stop you from getting there. If you're against an opponent that's reliant on rerolls, you can just shut those off with the infiltrators. And they have so much flexibility with the ability to increase their movement, and the ability to heal as well. So when you have a lot of melee operatives, just being able to heal D3 wounds, if that puts you over a break point, that's massive when it comes to this sort of team. So that's why I think that they're pretty good at the moment. And so I think A is a good place for them
Yeah.
to sit.
Yeah, for all of those secretly hoping for a tier list video shorter than 3 hours, I'm deeply sorry. Yeah, let's move on to the
Yeah.
next one.
Next team, Kazakin. Have they gone up in your estimations or no?
They are very deep in the D tier, I'd say.
Yeah, I think I'll put the top of
I
D
don't rate
tier,
them at all.
but like the
Top
issue
of
is,
D.
yeah,
Top of D is fun.
top of D because they can really put the dunk on elites, but they just really suck into a lot of other things. They're a very honest kill team, as we said. They're very reliable. They have some abilities that I love, but they just don't do very well into those horde teams. And the meta at the moment is a lot of horde teams. So um, yeah,
Yeah, let's put them at the top of D tier, just because with them you don't have to ask the question whether you can roll a crit or not.
yeah, that's great point. The next team then is Exaction Squad. What's your thoughts on Exaction Squad?
Oh, the fun police. I I've actually liked them a lot. I wish I had the team and had a chance to play them. We have a very strong player in the London community, Mikhail, who is is a very dangerous opponent when he's piloting his exaction squad. Um, would I put them in the A tier? Probably not. However, I would probably put them somewhere high in B, potentially
Oh
even at the
wow!
top of B as we currently have them. What are your thoughts
So
on
I'm
that?
going to be controversial here because I think they're still C tier, which might sound
A tier.
harsh, but like and it's hard to describe with this team, but they don't really have anywhere near as much double kill potential as your Star Striders or your or your novitiates, and they're just not as reliable. So uh, the the melee guys are just complete wild cards for everyone involved. But and like if you go into elites, you're forced into shield plays, I think, and you're just hoping that everyone just rolls badly and you roll well. And it's just such a weird play style. I don't know, like I've never won big with them, so I think they're good at like keeping the games like close, but I don't think they're particularly good when it comes to decisive victories. So I think they're probably like depends on the map, I guess. If you could put them as better or worse than Vetguard, so maybe I can be sold at maybe in the middle of B as like a compromise.
Middle of B, so
below
there's
novitiates
a
and Star
compromise.
Striders, but above
Um,
breaches and Vetguard.
I was about to say that if you want to put them for C, that's on you. That's clearly C for comments on YouTube. But you
Yeah.
know, if you want, well, I guess the only concern I have is that we're gonna have a very beefy B tier when we get to the end of it. So maybe on that note, let's keep them in C tier for now. You know, keep those comments coming,
Yeah,
and we might move them later on and see what comes up out of it.
maybe those buffs are going to make a huge difference. Like occasionally you're going to get those rerolls that you need, but I just feel like a lot of the time you, you're still quite fragile against the stuff that you don't want to be fragile against, and you're reliant often on just people rolling poorly. And if someone just rolls well, then there's nothing really you can do, which can hurt quite a lot, I think. Um,
We are indirectly praising Mikhail even more this way, but yeah, let's
yeah,
keep it that way.
well, I think he's a great player, and he's doing a great job with them. I can't argue it, I think, but just running Nemesis Claw into these guys, and no one has any rerolls, but Nemesis Claw hit on threes and you hit on fours. Um, like I know who's probably going to win, right? So it's
Yeah, I
it,
guess, yeah. Um,
next,
Great, let's carry on to the next one.
yeah, next team's Inquisitorial Agents. Um, I I don't think my opinion on this team has changed. They have some incredible abilities. They can shut down a lot of stuff. They have loads of flexibility, but they're just unreliable. So I think you could put them at the like behind Hunterclade and A tier, and I'd be happy. You could argue that they're S tier, but I just think that you're going to
No,
lose.
I wouldn't say that they're S tier. I think they are, as you put it, they are very much unreliable, and that is a huge downside, especially if you're heading into a lengthy tournament. Like the more rounds you have to play with them, the worse it is for you because sooner or later your team may fail you just because you're not gonna roll those 4-ups or whatever. You're gonna have to roll, and then you might lose a game due to that. You don't have too many rerolls, and yeah, I'd say they're still in A tier just because Absolute Authority is one of the most powerful ploys in the game. They have a lot of bodies, they have good AP weapons, they have melee dudes as well. So it's like they've got a bit of everything, but the sheer unreliability, I think, is the sole thing that holds them away from the S tier. And yeah, I would personally put them above Hunterclade just because they have absolute authority and so many tricks. But yeah, if you prefer to have them below Hunterclade and you believe in the AdMech so much these days, then yeah,
Yeah,
by all means.
I guess my logic with them going below Hunterclade is I think in a game against Hunterclade they can probably outperform them so long as they roll well. And I just what I can see happening is one or two of your melees are going to go wrong, and at that point it will just go bad for you, and you have a whole bunch of guys hitting on threes versus a whole bunch of guys hitting on fours.
Uh,
Um,
Dear YouTube, your dear Ryan has officially gone mad. He's putting White Dwarf team above Inquisitorial Agents, but yeah, here we go.
this is it. And well, I know full well what's going to happen as well is they're just going to turn off the fight twice and turning point two, so your assassins become somewhat useless, but not useless, but just
Yeah, on
just
that
not as
note,
good.
I would probably lean more towards infiltrators, just
Yeah,
to be able to do something with my infiltrators. If especially like if you turn off the rerolls entirely, if you have to, then inquisitorial agents are very dicey. Um,
it's
so
either that or
yeah,
you
I
go
think
for a
we could.
mixed field,
Yeah.
right? And you have a mixture of infiltrators and fight twice assassins, and they have to choose what they want. Do they want their reroll, or do they want you not to fight twice, and it becomes a problem for them maybe? There's a few options there. Let's leave it there for now, and I'm sure in the YouTube comments people can tell me why Inquisitorial agents are obviously above Hunter Clade, and that'll cause some good debate. Um, so let's move on to the next team, which is Scout Squad, the latestly buffed Giga Chads, Commandos Mark II. What do you think about these boys?
Well, they're definitely a great stat check team because you have to head into them being capable of killing 10 wound models with 4 up save reliably and consistently. Um, However, they do not rip the pants off, and they do not automatically destroy your opponents. People say, oh, these are commandos 2.0. I don't personally agree with that. I think they're strong, but I wouldn't put them in the S tier. I wouldn't say, oh gosh, they're so like unbeatable, so powerful. They're definitely better than commandos. I don't necessarily agree with that. Commandos have the 11th activation. They play the mission way better, and between the two, yes, you could say commandos kill less killy, but these guys definitely are much worse than commandos when it comes to board control play, and primary objectives is ultimately the easiest way to win your kill team match. So I'd say they will probably somewhere in the A tier, but I don't rate them probably as high as some other players would.
Yeah, so I'm inclined to agree, and the bit that I think you touched on there, which is really important when it comes to mission play, is the 11th activation is huge, but also having two easy comms rather than just one comms that actually is a bit difficult, and then having a 3 APL sergeant, because you want to keep your sergeant alive, so he's being like held back, and he's not as tough to kill as a orc knob with just a scratch. So actually, he's kind of weak to being killed, and then equally at the same time you want him to be on an objective holding a point on capture or something, so that kind of hurts. But the new combat knives now are just incredible for killing most of your elite players, so I agree with you. I think they go in A tier. I think they probably I'm going to say that they could go above Hunter Clade, but
I was expecting to hear that they will end up below Hunter Clay, and my comment was supposed to be that silver YouTube button is coming, but
yeah,
yeah, I'd say they're above Hunter Clay. So yeah, let's keep them in A tier.
they just have
As of
that
now, at the very top of A tier.
they just have a lot more punch when it comes to each of their weapons. I think with the sniper being silent as well, that's a really nice addition. And they have some really good reliability, and they have some real melee monsters as well. Less double kill potential, but I still think that they can do some quite reliable damage and hang around longer than Hunter Clay do anyway. Okay, so the next team is Phobos, which I did take to a tournament not too long ago. I forgot where I came. I think I went where it was 3-1. I think this team is probably living in that sort of elite world where, you know, they have some tricks. They're really cool, and there's bits you can do with them, but you're still just hitting on threes without any rerolls, which is more reliable than say Inquisition. So maybe I'm being too harsh on Inquisition or too harsh on Phobos, but six models with that sort of reliability, I'm I'm inclined to say somewhere between B and C is where I think these guys sit. But what's your thoughts when it comes to Phobos?
Yeah, I think I would agree with that. I don't particularly like them situation when it comes to the top of the meta as of now. Yes, they can play certain missions into certain teams extremely well, and basically keep running circles around your team and bashing the points and scoring primaries. But that's the idealistic fairy tale that don't they won't get to play on every other match, or probably not even every third match that they play. So in general, I agree with your assessment. And where would I put them? Shall we put them at the top of the sea,
Yeah, I think so.
above the exaction squad?
I think top of C. I think they're above exaction because, and the reason I say this is because with terror on the Reavers and stuff, they can play around the objectives so much better than exaction can, and they don't have to fight you in melee. Someone like, you need to remember that they can just bolt pistol you in the face, and they're fine with that. So AP1 3-4 is enough to kill most of your exaction guys, or they can kill the guys with shotguns. So top of C, I think, is probably a good place for those guys to sit. We are running out of Imperial teams. There's only 2 more to come, and they are both elite teams. So let's go with Intercession Squad next. Where do you think the boys in blue, the Smurfs, the Giga Chads, belong on the tier list these days?
So as much as they had their prime time is long gone. Like that's ancient history by now, and I'd say they belong in the very deep depths of D tier these days. That's what I would say.
And do you reckon they're above or below Kazakin though? That's the
Well, as we said, Kazakin don't have to roll the crits.
yeah.
So yeah, jokes aside, like I think they're worse than Kazakin right now.
Yeah,
There's so many teams that will butcher your 6-man elite teams that yeah, they don't do anything special. They're just beefy guys with double shoot or double fight and some basic weapons. I really don't rate them that much.
and not just that, but like when we come on to some of the other elite options that are out there these days, they just don't stack up, right? Like if you were to play Nemesis Claw against these guys, it just feels oppressive, I think. So yeah, I think we can stick them in D. The other team that's coming up next to them is Strike Force Justian, which I personally think is moderately better in some ways than Intercession Squad.
Yeah, but
So
we need to pause here for a second. Dear YouTube, your dear Ryan has actually played this team, Strike Force Justin, at a tournament. Yes, he's that crazy. And I'll tell you even more. Your competitive Ryan took this team to a very much narrative event at Warhammer World. How did that go?
I did. So the reason I did it is because Strike Force Justian don't get equipment, but if you play narrative, you can give them rare equipment. So by the end of my narrative tournament run, I was actually able to have a full kill team with Strike Force Justian, and I still hated the matchup against Nemesis Claw. So, like, yeah, like they're an interesting team. I think they do better into the matchups that in sessions suck at, but I think they do worse into the matchups that in sessions good at. If that makes sense. So having the invulnerable save, having the 18 wounds, having the leader, like the 2 leaders and that sort of stuff, hitting on 2s, you've got some reliable damage. You're good into your vet guard and your Kazakin. Or I say good, you're better. You're still not good into those, but you unfortunately just kind of suck into a lot of the rest of the field, and you don't have the tricks that you
So,
need to be able to deal with people.
so based on your very relevant experience at Warhammer World, would you put them above the Smurfs, the usual Smurfs? I mean, the Smurfs as well, but the
I
intercessors.
think yes, although that matchup is pretty tight when you play against each other. But the reason I say yes is because they have the CP to always ignore injury, always have their doctrine up, and have plenty of rerolls, and Intercession don't. So you can pretty much guarantee every turning point these guys are going to be Wrath of Vengeancing or Angel's Death on you. whereas I don't think in Session Squad get the same
Okay, I'll
luxury.
give you a better argument. They have a bulky bloke with a power fist, and this is
Yeah.
why they're better than Intercession. And let's move on to the next
Yeah.
team.
Absolutely. So we are now out. That is Imperial all done, and they sit between A to D. It's not looking good for the boys of the Imperium because no one sits in S tier. So we're going to roll into Chaos next, and as we've been talking about elites, let's roll with some elites straight away. Legionary with their new changes to marks. What's your thoughts on the new Legionary?
I think they're very strong. I mean, they're way better than they used to be, thanks to that. And I think this is exactly what they needed. And with all that being said, I think they're somewhere in B. And this is what I would say.
Yeah, yeah.
Well,
The way
you
you were
still have
hyping them
six
up, it
models.
was good.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, I know, but I did that on purpose. It's just that like, they still have only six bodies, and this will prove to be very problematic into certain matchups. Yes, it's great that you can take both Zinch and Nagel, and you can do it that way, but in a way, six models is a threshold which is difficult to overcome in a tournament setting when all of your opponents will just wait you out and then and basically force you to start turning point two from back foot. So for that reason, I still think they're somewhere in B. And my first impression is, uh, well, where would I put them?
So,
Would I put them
con-
above Vedgard? Would you put them above Vedgard?
yeah, so controversially, I think they might be towards the top of B now. And the reason I say that is
Top of
because
B.
they have the ability now to flex into most of the problems that people need to deal with. So let's say you're fighting against Felgor, you can take your Slanesh. Let's say you're fighting against a high AP team, you can take your Zinch. Let's say you're playing against another melee team that you don't care too much about, maybe you run Nurgle. And so I think I think now they have more flexibility than they've ever had before. Um, so I think they can go at the top because on ITD it will be tough against novitiates. Don't get me wrong, um, but I think with Zinch on ITD against novitiates they can still put some pressure on. And against Star Striders hate playing against Legionary, particularly with a 4-up Invon. So I I think that they might be at the top of B. Like
Yeah,
that's
let's put them at the top of B, but dear listeners, please do not play Zinch versus Novitiates. It doesn't work. Please take Korn or Slanesh. Zinch is almost irrelevant. They will kill you with their flamers, so your 4-up invul won't work anyway.
true. That's very true. I was thinking more on ITD for the +1 APL, but that was about it. Okay, so next we're into Warp Coven, the newly buffed Warp Coven that's got a balanced data sheet longer than the codex of 40k, I think. So um, this is an interesting team. I've seen them be played really well at Sheffield recently, and the way that they played them really well was by having all the tokens like you could possibly imagine on all of the guys. The models were color coded. They had all the data sheets ready to go to reduce that mental tax, and then played them really well. Um, and I think that's like it's a large investment to get this team to a place where they're probably middle of the road. So I'm gonna say like top of C, um, because the Zangors are pretty tough now, and you can have that activation advantage a lot against a lot of teams. But I don't think they're doing too much. But you've probably seen some Warp Coven plays. What's your thoughts?
I mean, sorcerers are obviously key, and Zangors are way beefier than they used to be, and for that reason, I think they deserve to be at the top of the C tier. I think they're better than Phobos. I also think that they're extremely difficult to even explain to your opponent, not even mentioning actually running them in a tournament. Like the only thing that's missing in the data state is like, please glue your models upside down to the basis, because like they as you put it, like their data slate is longer than not one but probably more than one codex for 40k. But yeah, let's keep them in at the top of the C tier and see if we want to move them later on. I unfortunately I still think they don't belong in B tier. because they do not play for victory points as well as the other elite teams.
Yeah,
And I've heard from few players that they, in certain cases, they will simply struggle to score tac ops or and basically play the game to win the game. And yeah, you may have your models beefy, but if you want to have your models beefy, you need them to be beefy in order for them to actually win the game. And these guys don't really want to do that much. They just want to be a difficult team to play and understand.
and and like the sorcerers have to do so much heavy work, and as soon as they fall behind and you start losing models, it's exponential. So yeah, I think top of C is probably fair, but probably
Yeah,
not.
I'm sure now, having said all of that, the next game I'm gonna play into Warp Coven, I'm gonna lose severely, and it's gonna be a huge drama, and someone's gonna point that out to me, like you know nothing about Warp Coven, and probably I will be right, but yeah, let's keep it in C tier for now.
So next on the elite hype train, we have Nemesis Claw, the probably most popular elite team in the meta at the moment. I'd suggest by quite a considerable way. Um, I'm guessing you've played against these guys quite a lot now. What's your thoughts when it comes to the biggest bad elite team?
Um, Still only 6 bodies. Definitely the ability that says no, you cannot activate that operative is extremely powerful, and they have an elite leader who is an absolute monster. However, they still struggle from the same issues that all other elite teams face, and that would be they only have 6 bodies that they can field on a table, and that's a huge problem. This when you're facing, you know, teams with like 12 to 14 operatives.
Yeah, and I would say that they're but in my opinion, the best of the elite teams. I just think that um, they can struggle into quite a few matchups. I'm really interested to see where they. So I do think they're A tier.
A
Um,
tier. Okay, I was about to ask whether you would put them in B or A, because I've heard opinions that legionaries are actually better these days,
oh, that's interesting.
but
I, I
I think they should be very close to Legionaries. I don't think that there's a huge difference between these two teams.
yeah. So
And on the face of it, I would put them at the very top of B for now.
okay, yeah, I'll do that. So cause I was going to say the very bottom of A. So top of B, bottom of A seems pretty reasonable place for them to go. So we'll put them at the top of B because I think they win against legionaries based on how many prescience tokens you roll turning point one. Because you should be able to set up your guys in a favourable situation for turning point two, uh, and then use Vox Scream to sort of guarantee your plays. So
Frog Scream, that's the name of that thing.
yeah, Vox Stream is it's gross. But like against say like Inquisition, being able to turn off your fight twice, shoot twice during turning point two is pretty huge. Against Hunterclade, they probably are quite good into Hunterclade. Hunterclade is just reliant on,
I
I
think they
guess,
still lose to Hunter Clade.
yeah, you just need to roll sixes. So I don't know. It's an interesting one. I'm happy with top of B. That kind of makes sense to me. Um, let's roll into the next team then. We're sticking with the chaos theme. So we're into Blooded, a 12 body team, been doing quite well at tournaments, sort of melee focused, somewhat reliable. Where are you thinking that they're sitting on the tier list at the moment?
I'd say A tier, just behind the Inquisitorial Agents.
Oh, you think worse than Inquisitor Agents? Interesting. Okay.
Um, yeah, I'd say just behind them, but I think these teams are very close. In a way, like, um, Inquisitorial Agents will be more flexible when it comes to the game style and the way you would play them, because they have both teams have a bit of melee, a bit of shooting. Inquisitorial Agents have the absolute authority. and the skull with the tome, which negates a lot of damage, whereas Blooded just have a ton of threats and that's probably it. But yeah, like I think they're very close. If you say, oh, they're better than Inquisitorial agents, I'm fine with that. That's fine. But I don't think they're better than Hunter Clay these days.
Interesting. I guess yeah, because you got the double kill potential. I I think it's like a really interesting like if the blooded player doesn't see it coming and you get like the double GA2 assassins off and kill 4 of their models in a single activation, then it's probably game for blooded. Um, but I would say, are they better than Inquisition? I think they are because you have more threats. Like Inquisition has more supporting models, but I think Blooded, like if you just go into a trading game between models that actually do stuff, I think Blooded win. Um, like you,
Yeah, probably. They have more threats. They have more reliable threats. So I think
yeah,
yeah, that sounds about right. Okay, let's put them between Hunter Clayton and Inquisitor agents.
yeah. And another thing I would say as well about it is that they really don't care about your absolute authority that much in comparison. Like they're not a ploy reliant team per se. So one of their strongest abilities doesn't do too much against Blooded. I know they do have some cool ploys, but um, they're not super reliant.
Yeah, the
Um,
free CP Relentless ploy.
uh, the 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 what? Sorry. The
3 CP Relentless
oh
ploy.
yes, yeah,
You
yeah.
spend three
Sorry, yeah. You
command
just
points to get Relentless.
you just keep doing the command reroll. Yeah, yeah. It's true. Um, right, let's go into the next one then. So we're sort of looking at melee hordes now, chaos focused, and we're into Felgor Ravagers, um, a team I still think are, in my opinion, still very strong. Clearly less strong than they were before, and I think they've got some. I would suggest like boogeymen matchups now, whereas in the past they would walk through quite a lot of them. But still, I think teams like um, Breachers, Vet Guard, Star Striders probably don't want to be meeting Felgor Ravagers. So I think they're probably going to sit in like B tier below the elite teams, below your sort of Nemesis Claw and your Legionaries, or maybe just
Well, it's supposed to be the controversial one. I was about to say just beneath Legionaries, but yeah, I guess we're on the same page here.
okay. That's good, I guess. So um, if we're in agreement, they're right slap bang in the middle of B, because and the way I look at this is like Legionaries can kill any Felgor really in their own activation. So you can't just charge and fight most of the Legionary threats. You definitely can't do that against Nemesis Claw, and so I think they just lose those melee fights. At which point it really hurts them. So, but that being said, any other team that's sort of your 10 bodies sort of thing or less can really get hurt by them too. So B seems reasonable. Seems reasonable. No teams in S yet. Wow, that's pretty impressive. Um, I'm sure there'll be more to come. Okay, so let's go into Chaos Cults. What's your thoughts on Chaos Cults?
I haven't played them in a very long while, simply because people just switched to different teams as soon as they got nerfed again. So so if I'd say, well, my placement is not based on any recent experience. I still think that the amount of bodies that they can field is decent, and a good player will be able to squeeze a lot out of them. I think I would put them somewhere in the B tier, but this is where my guesses end,
Yeah, I
and this is
think
where I would revert to players who actually like playing that team or have played against them recently.
so. I played against them the other day, a sort of a league game locally, and I was really impressed by them. Like they have there's so many tricks which I just forgot about that you're reminded that they can do. Like the sickening aura is really strong. the being able to auto-retain dice for melee, inflict mortal wounds on death to people, the like as you say, 14 bodies, being able to put threats where they need them whenever they need them, dash forwards just a scratch, all that kind of stuff. Like, there's so many little bits that are just really, really strong, and even which people probably are enjoying now with the Brew Brothers team is like the Mind Witch being able to move around and hand out -1 APL. That's
Oh
really
yeah, that is definitely still strong, and in a way, they probably enjoy the WTC maps, those with a lot of short, heavy walls and a lot of places to hide, because they're ultimately still a melee horde. So they should enjoy those boards. So yeah,
yeah.
maybe we should regard them as a very strong team these days.
I
Where would we
think.
put them then? Should we put them in A?
Ooh, I think they are in B, but the top of B, like I'm trying to think if Nemesis Claw would enjoy fighting them or not. I think Nemesis Claw would. I think Nemesis Claw wins. Does Legionary win? And the reason I say Nemesis Claw wins is because they just turn off the rerolls. So you're just hitting on forwards at that point. I think they're going to sit slap bang between Nemesis Claw and Legionary in B tier. I think they're better than Felgor now
Okay.
because they're still 14
Yeah,
bodies.
yeah, I think so. Yeah, let's put them in between Nemesis Claw and Legionary.
Yeah. Okay. The next team, Gellerpox Infected. I
Ooh,
think,
that's a good one.
because I think we disagree on this potentially. Well, I don't know. We'll see. Because I think they're still really strong, based entirely on rolling 5-ups. So I think they're one of like the strongest melee hordes in the game. They've got super conceal. They're really durable. They've got loads of bodies. They don't have too many activations, but they don't necessarily need it. And they can just completely tie you up with bodies. So I think personally they sit in A tier, maybe even S, but like I think they're a really
Okay.
strong team. But I know you've played them a bit more than me potentially, and don't think
So
quite so
yeah,
much.
I played this team quite recently. I took them to a 2-day event. I also played against them quite recently. I think they're very strong, and I agree with your remarks. I would put them somewhere at the top of the or towards the top of the A. However, there's one particular thing which I dislike about Gellerbox a lot, and that is that they leave a lot of the agency in the game to your opponent.
Mm, yeah,
And there will be cases, depending on the map and the mission, but there will be cases where you might lose to a barricade. And I hate that feeling that you look at the map and you look at your opponents, they pick up the barricade, they place it correctly, and they do it with the other one, and all of a sudden you have a Chinese wall through the middle of the board, and they hold back, but do it in a smart way so they can reach the objectives, and it suddenly becomes really difficult because you leave a lot of agency in how the game is played in the hands of your opponent. Yes, you have drawn to the hum, I get that, but if you're playing against a good opponent, they will account for your drawn to the hum as well. So yeah, but all that being said, I think they're still very strong. You cannot underestimate for Hulk. So yeah, I put them somewhere in the A tier, and I like them more than I like Scouts, I'd say.
yeah. Top of A, I think is probably where I put them as well. So right to the top, and part of that is because of the whole injury auras and that sort of stuff, reducing attack dice. It's just really really strong. So top of A, Gellerpox Infected. That seems to make sense to me. We are pushing straight on through, so we are into Eldari factions now. So let's start up with the Corsairs. Um, I I do like this kill team. I think they're really fun to play. I think they're really explosive and cool, but I think they're fragile and they lack reliability. Um, Somewhat of a theme, I would suggest, for most of the Eldari teams. So I'm thinking that they're going to sit somewhere in C or B tier, I think, probably. but I'm not too sure where to put them. What's your thoughts?
Well, they have a rather decent Alpha Strike potential.
Agreed. Yeah.
They do play quite well into elites. They will play certain missions quite decently okay. But apart from that, yeah, I'm not overly impressed with the team. I think that other teams that try to do similar stuff, but they do it better. I'm looking at Mandrakes, and yeah, for that reason, I'd put them in probably in B tier, and I put them probably behind Vedguard, so at the very bottom of B tier.
Bottom of B. Yeah, I can agree with that. I think they are sort of like almost perfectly balanced. If that makes sense. Like they can sit there and they can go either way. As you say, they love fighting elites. They hate fighting some of the other matchups. It is what it is for them. Running on that theme, then, if we go into Blades of Cain, the 3 APL variant, able to move 7 inches, just I think where you say Corsairs like the elite matchup, I think Blades of Cain hate the elite matchup, but enjoy playing most of the other teams. Um, so I think that they sit in C tier, probably towards the bottom, but they have a lot of tricks. So I think they could easily punch up and do pretty well. But I think against some of the elite plays, they don't enjoy it. Where's your thoughts on Blades of Cain?
Yeah, I think having a model styled for the Predator is not enough.
Yeah,
And unfortunately, they're still elves, and I don't like elves that much. And yeah, I put them in C tier. No, I like jokes aside, I would agree with what you said. That they do not have any serious AP weapons. Yes, people say, oh yeah, but if you take a good exarch, you can kill multiple marines and yada yada yada. But it's not as reliable, not what you want to have with such a team. And yeah, and if you look again at another Eldari team, that other team does everything in a similar way but better. So yeah, let's put them in C tier. Where will we put them in C tier?
I'm gonna
Will
put
we put them at the very bottom? C tier?
yeah. I put them at the bottom because I think when they go against exaction, that they don't like running into the shields. They they just become dependent upon rolling crits, and there's a high
If your
chance they
team
just get
loses
laid out.
to shields, that's bad.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, it's like you're not getting bashed in the ground. You just like face a shield, and then you can't punch through a shield. That's bad.
And they're only 4 attacks as well, which just like it just hurts for them so much. They can get parried out so easily. So yeah, I think bottom of C that they won't enjoy running into quite a lot of those other teams, even against like Phobos with the Reavers and that sort of stuff. I think they get stabbed to death by those guys as well. So um, bottom of C seems reasonable for Blades of Cain, although I think with a few changes that team could absolutely go nuclear. Um, let's talk about probably one of the most competitive teams from the Elven teams then, and let's talk about Mandrakes. So, what's your thoughts on Mandrakes?
Well, since our last tier list, I have played them quite a bit. I mean, I played against them quite a bit. There was a huge boom. Mandrakes, everyone kept like switched to Mandrakes all of a sudden. They were easy to get hold of. They were easy to paint. They were extremely powerful. And if people complained about Void Dancer's fly, try teleporting a team across the table. And yeah, it's just like they have ridiculously long reach, and they're for that reason they're very strong. I still think that a newer player will struggle to play with them because if you
Agreed.
don't know what to do with them, if you put your operatives too forward, too deep into the board, you'll find your opponent charging you and killing you. Yes, you have fight first if you need it, but yeah, it's still a team that requires a lot of game prep or at least a plan. You want to play them from behind. Having said that, this is a team that can control probably 3/4 of the board from the deployment zone, and that is extremely powerful. I would put them someone in A,
Yeah, I think they're going to sit just behind Galapox. I think they're
just behind Galabot.
Yeah, I think their abilities are just so strong. I mean, to be fair, you could also probably say that they could arguably, will they beat Galapox? There's a chance that you don't get to activate any of your hulks if you're nearby a leader, I guess, which is the most
No,
taxing
I
ability.
think this matchup is actually for Galapox. I think Galapox benefit from the fact that Mandrakes will still struggle to kill the Hulks,
Yeah,
and you have so many bodies that you can actually overwhelm the Mandrakes. I think we can keep them just below Galapox.
yep, that works for me. So top of A, just below Galapox, because I still think they can kill scouts with their power weapons, which I think is probably a good place for them to be. Let's roll on to the next team then. Let's look at Hand of the Archon, one of the weaker side of the Eldari teams potentially. I like recently some players have been doing really well with this team. I don't really know how they do it myself. I'm always consistently impressed when they do. I personally think they're probably like top of D tier, but I'd be interested to know if you're seeing anything that I'm not, or have heard anything that you think that I've potentially missed.
No, I think I would put the Sad Elves at the very bottom of our tier list. Yes, I know it might be a bit controversial, but I really don't find this team too impressive. I think that they need to work too hard to get the game going for them. And if I look at the other teams, like yes, they might be better than maybe Intercession, but it's a close call. I wouldn't rate them that high.
Yeah. Okay. I'll chuck them right down at the bottom because I don't think they're going to be down there on their own for too long. But let's finish off and round out the last of the Eldari then. So let's look at Harlequins. Where do you think Harlequins sit now with all the changes that have gone on with the team?
I think they obviously took a massive hit. I think the restrictions to their movement are not really justified, considering we have Mandrakes in the metagame. I would prefer to see Void Dancers back to the full fly, and I think that would be great. But based on what we have these days, I would probably put them just above Blades of Cain.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's a slightly better version of Blades of Cain. I think they have the same sort of like survivability, or better, arguably, with the Domino Field versus the Super Concealed, Smoke Grenades, whatever. But they have Domino Field of 4-up and Vulnerable Save. They have access to AP. They can do more damage versus elites, so that they're a more well-rounded team, I think. But I think they still struggle into some of those other teams that we have above them. So yeah, I think sort of that lower end of C tier, just above Blades of Cain, probably feels about right for me at least.
Okay.
Cool.
Was that the last one of the Eldari teams?
That is
I think it
the
was.
last of the Eldari. So we're now into Xenos. So first for Xenos, let's get the boys in green out of the way. The Orc Commandos. You've obviously had a lot of time playing with these guys. Where do you think they sit now, based on the various buffs and nerfs, well, mainly nerfs, but that they've had recently?
So, to offer some context here, when I play Commandos, I perceive them as a team that prefers to play the mission, i.e., they prefer to bash the points, they prefer to stick on the board for as long as possible. So, no Justice Scratch being used offensively. You prefer to take a charge, survive that charge thanks to Justice Scratch, block your opponent out, parry them out, and just stick on the board for as long as possible. Get the 4-2 or even 4-1 very often in turning point one, turning point 2 preferably as well. And if that happens across these 2 turning points, they have fairly easy tack-ups to score. And that means that from turning point 3, you can start trading in a very inefficient way, i.e. trading with your opponent to their benefit, but you can still win the game simply because your only goal by that point is to maintain as much lead or control on the primaries as possible, and you're going to win the game. And that hasn't changed. That's still the case. They still do the same sort of stuff. So I would probably put them above scouts for that reason.
Yeah, I'm inclined to agree. I think they play similarly to scouts, but they do the mission better, but they're less killy. So I almost think scouts and commandos, like, they're doing two separate things, but I think they sit in the same area. So when people are looking at these teams, you can take either one and play a subtly different game. But I think, as you said, commandos are better at playing more of the missions more often. So I think they probably sit there, and I think they're still beneath Mandrakes and Galapox. So I don't think they necessarily beat those teams, depending upon the mission, that sort of stuff, what's going on the board. But yeah, better than or equal to scouts, I think, is probably an assessment that I would say. Let's press.
And just to build upon that, if we compare them to scouts, yes, we our assessment is that scouts are more killy, commandos play the mission a bit better, but ultimately it's way easier to win the game simply by going 4-2, 4-2, 4-2, and then whatever, I can lose my team.
Yeah.
The game is called Kill Team, but as someone said by the end of the previous edition, sometimes it appears it should be called Hold Team and not Kill Team.
Points team is it's the way forwards. Let's press on to the next team then, and it's Pathfinders, which have been received again some more nerfs, but I wouldn't say that they're so impactful, these nerfs for Pathfinders. The recon sweep on turn 1 stops the most egregious of turn 1 alpha strikes, but I'm not going to lie, I don't think I did a turn 1 alpha strike with grenades since the EMPs got removed from being able to take 6 down to just the 1. So I think they do like a very similar job to Blooded, in a sense that Blooded's like the melee horde. This team's a shooting horde. They can achieve some quite good reliability. The recon archetype being locked into it means that depending upon maps, like if someone's taken the option for secure advantage away from you, you can find it difficult to max. Potentially, you're forced into sort of like a courier play with your recover item and then a faction tack op. So I don't think I want to put them in S tier anymore, but I think they probably do sit somewhere in A. I want to say they're probably better than your commandos, but I don't think they're...
This is where we're going to have a very first serious disagreement.
Oh, okay.
Because I would put them at the very bottom of A. And the reason for that is that, first of all, they don't like playing loot, because if you're on loot, you have to both mark like your opponent, move around the board, click the floor, and then shoot your opponent, and you cannot melee them, and that makes it very weird when it comes to positioning. And I wouldn't want to be in a situation where my team simply doesn't want to play 1/3 of the missions, regardless of their opponent. And and then on top of that, we need to consider the teams that we have in A tier and that we will have in S tier might prove to be a rather difficult pairing for them. For that reason, I would put them somewhere at the very bottom of A. I don't really rate them as high. Simply because you have to be extremely careful. Like treat them as not plastic models. Treat them as a very fragile porcelain, and and play from the depths of your deployment zone, just so your opponent can't reach you. And yeah, I don't think they're as strong to put them somewhere at in the middle of A tier. But yeah, if you prefer to put them there, you obviously have more experience running the team than I have. So
I
I'm gonna lean on you on
Yeah,
this one.
I think what I'll do is I'll stick them just above Inquisitorial Agents. 'Cause I think they do better into that. But I agree with you on what you've said. They hate loot, particularly against if you play against sort of your Chaos Cult, your Felgor Ravagers, your Gelapox, who are just going to sit on points and just stop you from being able to score. Um, yeah, I completely agree, and they really don't have an answer for some of those teams. I think so. Whereas I think I would say you're probably right. Blooded play better into more of the missions than in that sense than they do. I am now looking at Hunterclade being so far up this tier list and thinking to myself, they probably don't belong there. But we'll keep we'll keep pushing through because it seems unusual that they're as high as they are. Let's go to Wormblade as a next team, who I think have been performing pretty well. Um, my gut says that we're probably going to end up putting them somewhere similar to your Blooded and your Pathfinders. Uh, Maybe they're just like a better version of those teams. Do you think they sit in A? Like, I'm tempted to stick them just above Hunterclade or around that sort of level. Or what's your thoughts with this team?
Well, I think that the strength depends on the mission that they play. They really like to play anything that requires clicking the objectives, because of that free mission action. Um, and for that reason, they also like playing ITD a bit more. That means that they like playing capture a bit less. Um, the cult agents are strong, but as soon as you take them away from Wormblade, I think Wormblade will start to struggle. I think they might be better than Pathfinders. I don't think they're better than Blooded. I also don't think if they're better than Inquisitorial agents. If anything, I think our Inquisitorial agents placement is too low, and I would say that Wormblade should be above Pathfinders, and the agents should be above both of them, maybe.
All right, yeah, I can be sold on that. I think I'm going to bump Inquisitor Agents. I'm going to put them above Hunterclade. I think as long as you don't roll terrible and you turn off the double fight, you should be fine. So it's just like a can you avoid the terrible rolls is where they probably are. So I'll put them above Hunterclade, above Blooded, above Wormblade, and Pathfinder sit at the bottom of A, which is something we haven't seen in a little while. But I don't disagree with your placement, sort of, but in that middle ground there. Let's roll on to the next team then, which is Kroot. So probably the opposite end of the spectrum. I think this team still has the same issues it's always had. I think it goes into D tier at the bottom, and for many reasons that we've already elaborated on. Lack of killing potential, really locked into a single game plan. If you can do that game plan, then it's pretty good. And if you get to fight 7 wound bodies, then you do really well. But if you don't, then it kind of sucks to be a Kroot player. What's your any disagreements with that at the sort of the bottom of D?
Yeah, so the problem with Kroot is that yes, they're still capable of maxing their tackles by turning point 2. But if that means that you are even on primaries TP1, TP2, and then you max your tac ops, then your opponent is likely to max their tac ops by TP4. However, your opponent is going to also take 4-2 at least once, and then you lost the game. And if you combine that with the fact that they struggle to kill certain operatives or even certain teams in the game, I think this is what grants them that very precious wooden spoon slot at the very bottom of our tier list.
Yeah, agreed. So let's press straight into the next Xenos team, which is going to be Hierotech Circle. So Hierotech, what's your? I mean, I'll give you my quick opinion. Is they feel like they play like a different way. They're like a pseudo elite team, like Warp Coven is, but they just play it in a different way. They're less complicated than I would suggest the Warp Coven are, but they feel to me to be of a similar power level. They're more shooting focused, but they are, you know, I guess, and arguably more durable. But they still, I don't know what it is with them. They can be too slow sometimes. They're only 2 APL. Um, yeah, I don't know. I just feel they sort of sit in that awkward top of C tier, but I
I
could.
think they're actually worse than Phobos, uh,
Okay.
because Phobos can play missions really well, and Necrons have definitely lost a lot with the most recent nerf, and the change to reanimation. They're not as powerful when they come back. And yeah, I think these days both Warp Coven and Phobos are better. They might be better than I mean the Heretic Circle might be better than the Exaction Squad, but yeah, I would see them somewhere in the mid of a C tier. I don't really rate them that high anymore.
Yeah, I'll agree with you. I'll stick him just below Phobos because I don't disagree. When you get like a objective control game and you've got Reavers against you, there's a whole bunch of 2 APL guys, and if they get in melee with you, the Reavers can beat you up quite easily. So um, we're moving into the last few teams now. So let's start with a team that you've been playing quite a bit of, the Hearthkin Salvagers. Um, they've obviously been doing pretty well out of the buffs. Where do you think these guys? I mean, they got a ridiculous buff, like, which no one really saw coming. Where do you think they sit now with that?
Well, I don't know. I'm not so sure. They could use another one. Bottom of the sea. I think yeah, they need more help. Like maybe an extra operative, please, pretty please. No, like jokes aside, they're extremely powerful. I actually played 3 events with them so far. Each of those events I played on a different patch, and each of those events I thought, wow, they're so powerful. I mean, of course, when I played them like 2 balanced data slates back. So before the recent sets of buffs that they received, they were like, okay, they're playable. But these days, oh my God, they are so powerful, so strong. If you can imagine, Thane these days can take a flank on ITD versus certain teams by himself. Just you
Yeah,
just throw that guy. All you need to do, you need to open the door for him, and your opponent, if they open the other door on their side, that is probably a mistake because that thing is gonna like just move through them, like a warm knife for a pack of butter. So I'd say they are one of the very best teams in the game, and I will risk it. They are an S tier.
oh, you're going to put S tier. Okay,
Yes, I
interesting.
would put them in S tier.
Even with their matchup against, say, like Mandrakes or Colts or something like that, or a melee.
So okay, so when I played with Guy who spent a lot of time piloting Mandrakes, and I took my Halfkin, and it took me a long while to actually beat him. And on the previous patch, it felt like no, it's not really doable. I have to drop Halfkin simply because there are too many players that will play Mandrakes, and in that matchup, it was so hard for me that I felt that I could easily lose to an opponent with a much worse plan than mine for the games. So I thought, no, I'm not playing that. But these days, the -1 damage on objectives means that you're forcing them to roll a crit. Yes, they have lethal 5 up, they have potential rerolls, but that with 4 dice and a reroll, that still means that 1 out of 5 combats, they will not roll that crit. And if that happens on the first or the second combat, they might lose the game because of that. This is really unhelpful for them. On top of that, if you look at Thane again, Thane is another operative that you can just push forward with and expect him to do the job, um, even despite my Mandrake's fight first. I think this matchup, as much as it is still difficult for Halfkin Salvages, It's very much playable, and if that matchup is playable, I see Halfkin at the very tip of the tier list. They probably are. I mean, I know they're not the strongest team in the game, but I think it would be very unfair for me to say, oh, they're in A tier. I think they should be in the S tier.
Okay, I'm gonna yield to your experience and say because I think they are. I would have put them top of A or probably just behind Mandrakes, but based on your experience of that matchup, let's throw them into it. So the last two teams we have is Brood Brothers and the Hernkin Jaegers. Let's stick on the dwarf theme. Let's finish off Hernkin Jaegers. Have you played against this team yet recently? Or
Um, Not really, so I'm definitely not an expert here, and my opinion is based solely on me reading the rules and basically giving them some thought. So I'm not an expert. I've heard so many different opinions and mixed opinions. I think my initial placement, because I initially placed them somewhere very deep in the C tier, probably was a bit unfair towards Hanken Jaegers. They will definitely still struggle in certain matchups, and that's not really helpful. They still have, like, as far as I recall, only one AP weapon, which is not ideal.
yeah,
But they also have a few decent tricks, and I've heard that some people tend to get good results with them. So, on the face of it, I would put them somewhere in the B tier.
yeah, I think it's either like bottom of B, top of C for me. Like so, playing against these guys and seeing some of the guys play with them, like they've got, as you say, they've got some really cool abilities. Um, I'm sure that there's more that this team can do, but they're a really durable team, which is pretty cool. Um, but they're quite CP hungry to be able to get off what they do. They basically got this like crazy opening gambit on Turning Point 2 where they can kill I think up to 5 models, which is pretty wild. But if it doesn't come off, like then it hurts them. And a lot of their melee to achieve double kills is all predicated on hitting on fours. So yeah, like those plasma knives are good, but equally I can see them losing those plasma knives quite frequently. So I'll put them I'll put them at the end of B tier. Um, I agree with you that they do have some play. They could potentially find themselves moving around, but end of B seems reasonable. I'm excited to see people prove me wrong with them. Um,
And if we are wrong, we are wrong. We are ultimately narrative players these days, right? So,
he plays one narrative tournament, and I get branded. So the the final
um,
team, which it's Brood Brothers, right? So I'm just going to put them straight into the top of C, top of S. Sorry, not C. They're going straight to top of S for me. This team seems to have everything you could want from a team and a huge amount of
and more.
flexibility. Yeah. So the only reason I haven't been playing them is because I'm getting ready for a team tournament playing a different team, right? And you can only have one Brew Brothers on your team. I think there is a genuine risk that with this team as is, we can see a lot of people picking this team up and them becoming real popular based on their strength. They have so many crazy abilities. The objective control that they can have with their icon is huge. They can trade so efficiently. They are the only downside is
So
they hit on
yeah,
fours. Like that's it.
I I took them to Gunhammer Open, and so did my teammates that actually also attended the tournament. So all of us from the old ones, we took Brute Brothers to that event. Um, and I think that this team is beyond powerful, beyond broken, and it's not because oh, they're not as broken as, let's say, Colts on release or Felg on release. But when people say that, what they think is broken is when you can throw your pieces on the board and expect to win just because your team can withstand anything. When it comes to Brood Brothers, they are not an autopilot team. However, they have weapons in their arsenal to face every single strategy and every single opponent that exists in this game, and they can do it quite well. They have incredible range on the grenades. The fact that they can move so far with the crack and the 12th activation, 10.1, and basically reach anything they want to. That is ridiculous. The fact that they have three equally powerful leaders, each of which with their own place in the game, depending on the matchup and the map and the mission. And so many activations, so many good tag ploys. I found the tag ploys so strong with this team that I actually stopped using the uprising because I felt like I haven't got enough command points to pay for uprising two because you won't get more because you still are active opponents might have each one, but yeah, being someone else's else, oh, I'm going to obscurity and kind of fun with it. Protecting leader, also retaining the Chris if you're within 6 of the leader of the icon. The icon, which is better than any other icon in the game. The icon gives +1 APL and 1 active hub 3 objectives. This is so powerful, so strong that there simply is no argument for that to be the theme of the game. I think if we have to get extra points back before the next edition we come to contest this autumn, I think this should be enough. Not basically themselves, they require sorry, a player, just then any other open game, and they seem not have a weak spot in that sense.
Yeah, I agree.
But then you have interesting errors with the errors that actually play in this game. This is straight by errors.
Yeah, I can agree. And actually, with the it's some ruthless coordination and just being able to set up shots never visible. And it's with that combination Insidious, so you can move some. So they're now within range to shoot well. Like that's ends up so opportunity for something. They have a lot of bodies. They have access to good types, which can destroy and security based on what you do and for they're just really trying. The fact that we mission action on death whilst counting 3 APL, you have losing it before they die, or an entity, it's so to keep on top of the point differential. That icon first, and you're having to expend resource to come from you. So I completely agree. So strong. I think the Primus is amazing. I think the Magus is amazing. I think people are using the Patriarch a little bit too much. I think it's more niche than people think it is. People are looking at the big boy model. I think it definitely has a place. But I think most of the time you want to be using those other leaders, in my opinion. So couldn't agree more with all of what you've said, really. Straight to the top of S tier. So if we just have a quick reflection on the tier list, because I think that's us now coming towards the end. Do we think Galapox and Mandrakes should be shifting up just slightly into S? Do we think they're a tier above Commandos and Scouts? I could be tempted, I think, to see them fill out the rest of S tier with Commando, Scouts, and the rest of the A tier just sitting one below. Or do you really think it's that much of a difference between, say, Hearthkin?
Yeah, I was. No, it actually does look a bit ridiculous with Hearthkin being the only other team in S tier apart from Brood Brothers. So I would say, yeah, we can shift Galapox and Mandrakes up to S tier and keep Commandos at the top of our A tier, and yeah, that would look quite decent, I'd say.
Maybe I'm being controversial here. Do we think they're above these other teams? I could be. I think genuinely there might be a case to say that Brood Brothers are.
Oh yeah, they definitely does it. Yeah, I think okay, yeah, I can see that. I honestly think that this team is very much the strongest team in the game. They hands down they are the best. Again, not because you can bring them to the table and expect it, but because you can go many more. They have a plan against it and extremely powerful.
I'm in agreement. I'm just than I think most of the other teams, and I think it'd be rude to keep them away from that. So I think they're an S plus. Hearthkin, Gelapox, Mandrakes in S. A tier, you're looking at Commandos, your Scout Squad, Inquisitorial Agents, Hunter Clade, who does feel weirdly high in that list, but maybe it makes sense actually, with Blooded, Wormblade, and Pathfinders rounding out A tier. I could potentially see Blooded above Hunter Clade. It's a difficult